Well, the month of January 2023 is finally upon us, and with that, we have to discuss all of the major Nintendo Switch game releases that will be dropping this month, some of which you might want to pay more attention to than others. And while I'm sure many out there, myself included, are definitely ready and expecting a lot of additional game announcements to be featured at something like a late January or most likely February Nintendo Direct, there are still some other games that we do need to look at that will be dropping this month before any expected Direct, and we have to go over all the details right now. What's up, nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, today we were looking at every major Nintendo Switch 2023 game release, and to be fair, in comparison to months past, it is not quite as stacked of a month. However, I do think we are in a little bit of a calm before the storm phase, as we are going to be quickly approaching the next conversation around Nintendo Direct again, as we should expect it to air sometime in late January or most likely in the month of February, as if you look at history, that is normally the choice. But there are still some games that we do need to hop into and discuss today, and some major titles on the list, especially for fans rather of certain franchises. And to first just hop right in, we do have to talk about Children of Silent Town, which is one that I was not familiar at all with until doing a little bit of research on the video. And it's more of like a point and click story driven game, where it says Children of Silent Town is a dark adventure game that tells the story of Lucy, a girl growing up in a village deep in a forest inhabited by monsters. People disappearing is nothing uncommon here, but this time Lucy is old enough to investigate on her own, or so she thinks. Story-driven point-and-click games don't really do it for me, but I'm sure there's plenty of fans of that style game out there, and one that you may want to look at on the Switch when it releases on January 11th. Next up, January 12th, we have Lone Ruin, which is described to be a roguelike game that actually has a really cool-looking art style, kind of pixel art, HD 2D, if you will, with that unique overhead, kind of off-centered perspective. And I will just say, like, just looking at the brief gameplay trailer while I was looking at this month's games, like, I'm actually more interested in this one than I thought I would be, and I definitely will look into this when it does launch on just Steam and the Nintendo Switch. You gotta love how Nintendo Switch gets a lot of those indies that sometimes would only make it over to PC in console generations past, but Nintendo has definitely made the eShop very friendly for developers of all sizes, and so this one to me does look like it's worth a deeper look at. This is out on January 12th. Again, Lone Ruin, a roguelike for your Nintendo Switch collection. Then you have Chasing Static, which is a psychological horror thriller story-driven game. As it says, explore the untouched wilderness of rural Wales as you uncover the forgotten remains of a mysterious facility and find the truth behind the missing villagers of Hearth. The trailer didn't do a ton to catch my attention personally, so probably one that I will skip up on, but that is also out January 12th. Chasing Static, one that you could look into adding to your Switch collection. Vengeful Guardian Moonrider is actually one that I was, again, surprised by the trailer when watching for the video research, because it's definitely a love letter to the Sega Genesis / SNES era of gaming, with some really cool fast action platforming combat, and then some dedicated cutscenes throughout, building a story. Metroidvania vibes for sure. And you know, you may say there's quite a bit of support for this genre and style of game now, but every now and then ones just look impressive enough that you have to take a second look at and consider just throwing them into your collection. Drago Noka and Terror of Hemosaurus are a couple games that are coming out on January 12th as well. Not a whole lot of footage promotional wise around these games, so not a ton of first impressions to share with you guys. But then you do have Breakers Collection, which is actually something that is the re-release of Breakers and Breakers Revenge, which were cult classic fighting games on the Neo Geo as well as arcades. And if you were just a fan of that 1v1 classical fighting style game, you can't get enough of Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, or anything similar to that style of gameplay. That one might be worth looking into. Gray's Counter GM is next on the list, out January 18th. This one, it looks like kind of an R-type overhead shooter type of game with a heavy anime influence in the presentation of the game. Never Awake is one that had an interesting looking trailer, side scroller type shooter on rails, certain stages and things. It looked like a lot of fun. Just briefly reviewing the trailer, that is out January 19th. Colossal Cave, an action adventure game, out on January January 19th. Persona 4 Golden and both Persona 3 Portable are out on January 19th, and these are big releases for the Switch. They're quite honestly overdue on the platform. They have a huge following online behind them. They are a heavily story-driven JRPG, as you would expect from that genre, but a really cool, unique art style, upgrade path, strategy involved with building out your team. And if you don't know, this is the franchise that the Joker is from in Smash Bros, which got a lot of additional eyeballs on this franchise. And I won't claim to know the most about it myself. I've briefly played Persona 5 Royal, but I need to go in and experience these classics as well as Persona 5 Royal to its entirety, and the Nintendo Switch is the perfect platform to do so. Both of those will be out on January 19th. Then right after, on the 20th, we have arguably the biggest release, really the only first-party Nintendo published game, being of course Fire Emblem Engage. Fire Emblem is one of those series that I've known about for years and years, mainly due to games like Smash Bros with Marth and Roy way back in the day on the Smash Bros Melee era on the GameCube. But this honestly looks like it's shaping up to deliver a fantastic story, really top-notch animated style graphics. Like, it literally looks like you were watching an advanced anime when you were playing through the cutscenes, or watching the cutscenes rather, of this game that they've portrayed so far. And yeah, think tactical strategy, turn-based RPG, gameplay mechanics at their finest. I will definitely be picking this one up at release and hopefully getting more into the Fire Emblem series as time goes on. Although I still have a ton of games to get through and play, I am personally keeping my eyes peeled and will be looking at reviews as we lead up to the release of Fire Emblem Engage on January 20th. Risen is a game that is out on the 24th that kind of gave me like a third-person Skyrim type of vibe to it. I'm not entirely sure of all the gameplay mechanics throughout, but you'll see it yourself on screen. Looks like a more budget version of Skyrim, and it's described as a open world fantasy adventure RPG. Seems like it could have a lot to offer for fans of that genre of gameplay. Then you have the Wonder Boy Anniversary Collection. It's 21 different Wonder Boy games. I'm not big on that franchise myself, but I know there's some people that probably have heavy nostalgia for it. 21 different Wonder Boy games in this Wonder Boy collection, out January 26th. Then you have 7 Days to the End with You. Not really interested in that one so much. Oddballers is another one that doesn't have a ton of promotional material. Some of these obviously being smaller indie games. Alice Escaped is a 2D action adventure Metroidvania style game. Looks like a lot of story and text throughout, so probably tons of storytelling. This one will be out on January 27th. Atone, Heart of the Elder Tree, one that didn't do a whole lot for me in the way of the trailer. Super Ninja Miner, another one we won't spend any time on. And then the last one that we'll just discuss briefly is SpongeBob SquarePants Cosmic Shake, which I saw a lot of lead up to the promotional material for this game last year. And I will say that while I historically have not really played through any of the SpongeBob games out there, they just seem like a lot of fun. Kind of a more simple version of like a 3D Mario platformer, where you're gonna have boss fights, you're gonna have, you know, sections where you kind of have to dodge roll, explore around. Seems like they crafted a very fun world, and obviously very colorful, and tons of well-known characters for fans of SpongeBob. And this one will be out January 31st, so rounding out the month as the very last Nintendo Switch release in January. Could we get surprise shadow drop announcements? Could we get a Nintendo Direct in January that actually shadow drops a number of games for this month? It's entirely possible. It's also possible that we really do have to wait until the first or second week of February to figure out anything else in terms of major first-party releases for Nintendo Switch games this year in 2023. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, whether or not you're picking up and adding any of these games on today's list to your collection. If there's any niche ones out there that weren't on this releases.com website, what are they, and would you recommend any that we didn't cover? And then definitely share with me how you're feeling about how 2023 is lining up as a whole so far with new Switch releases. Are you pumped for this year, or do you think it will be a letdown? I don't know how it could with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coming out, but in general, I would love to hear your thoughts. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.